CNA's Sarah Al-Qadi is covering Singapore International Energy Week for us. She is live with a guest. Sarah.
Yeah, the International Energy Agency has a clear message for Southeast Asia. The region is particularly vulnerable to an energy crisis given its fast-growing energy demand and increasing dependence on fossil fuel imports. But the agency also sees some reason for optimism that will come out of this crisis with more sustainable and more secure energy systems. So I'm joined now by Dr. Fatih Birol. He's Executive Director of the International Energy Agency. Thank you so much for joining us. A very busy week ahead for you, Dr. Birol. But let's start with the energy crisis now. Do you think this has been exacerbated by the push for clean energy? And what other misconceptions are there that you think should be addressed?
I think the energy crisis, in my view, is the first truly global energy crisis. In the past, we had oil crisis, for example, 1970s. It was on oil. Now we have oil, gas, electricity, coal. Prices are very, very high. And this is triggered by the Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And Russia was not any country. Russia was the largest energy exporter of the world in terms of fossil fuels and the others. And as such, the cause, the root of the problem is Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In fact, clean energy is not only not responsible, but it is also one of the solutions of that. When I talk with the government leaders around the world, nobody complains me that we have too much clean energy. If they say they regret that they didn't have enough clean energy, renewables, or hydrogen, or nuclear power, or electric cars. So clean energy is not responsible, but the solution of this problem.
But with the focus on energy security and affordability, has that come at the expense of sustainability? Do you think this crisis is setting us back in this global energy transition?
That's a good question. We see some immediate responses to the current energy crisis. For example, in Europe, where I live, countries are now changing their policies for a short period and making use of coal, the dirtiest fuel. But these are short-term solutions. When we look at the structural changes, I see a major acceleration of clean energy use around the world. And it is driven by three factors. One, energy security. Second, climate commitments. And third, many countries are pushing clean energy, electric cars, solar, wind, others, for industrial policy reasons. Three things coming together: energy security, climate commitments, and industrial policy reasons. Three of them coming together is a very powerful combination. And many governments, from United States to Japan, from Europe to India, China, pushing renewables, electric cars, hydrogen, batteries very, very strongly, and nuclear is making a comeback. So as a result, I believe the energy crisis today, 2022, what we have, is a turning point for a better, cleaner, and securer energy future at the end of the day.
You mentioned at the event that Southeast Asia is an emerging heavyweight, but you also said that it is particularly vulnerable because of its dependence on fossil fuels. Can you tell us about the parallels that you're seeing between Asia and Europe, and what lessons should Asia learn in this situation?
So the first lesson Asia and everybody else should learn is you have to diversify your imports of energy. You get oil or gas or coal, this and that. Europe made the mistake, despite the IES years and years of underlining, warning that you shouldn't rely on one single major supplier for anything. And Europe made the mistake that bulk of the gas and a significant part of the oil was coming from one single country, which is Russia. So first of all, Southeast Asia should diversify the sources of imports. But the second thing is the fossil fuel dependency means the countries are vulnerable to the price fluctuations, and they cannot control this. It is controlled by a few major energy exporters. For political reasons, for other reasons, they may change their mind and they can push the prices up, and your economy is completely vulnerable to the high prices. So the best solution is to look for the options which are under your control, which is the solar, which is hydropower, bioenergy, electric cars, nuclear power, energy efficiency. These are the energy technologies of tomorrow. I think Southeast Asia needs to invest in tomorrow rather than in yesterday.
And at this event, you've also said that there is legitimate reason to be optimistic that we will come out of this crisis with more secure and sustainable energy systems. But at the start of COVID, a lot of people were optimistic as well that we will build back better. But we see how easy it is to go back to our old ways. What are some of the reasons of your optimism for this particular crisis?
So I have two reasons to be optimistic. By nature, I am not an optimistic man at all. But here, I am optimistic, and I think it's a legitimate optimism. I have two reasons to be optimistic. One, governments around the world, the big countries like United States, Japan, entire Europe, China, India, putting a lot of money on the table in order to accelerate the clean energy options, because they are giving incentives, tax incentives, subsidies, a different type of support, so that the solar, wind, nuclear power, electric cars are going to go very strongly. It is the money, government support, policy response. This is one. Second, when I look at the numbers, which we do at the IEA almost every day, I see that this year, renewables, we are going to see an unprecedented growth in renewables, more than 20%, which has never happened in the history, because governments are pushing clean energy, renewables, not because of climate commitments, but energy security to replace the fossil fuels. Then we also see that the electric cars, huge increase. Very soon, every second car sold in China, every second car sold in Europe, and every second car sold in the United States will be an electric car. So there is a major change here. When I look at the data, what is happening in the markets, when I look at the government responses, putting billions of trillions of dollars on the table to push the clean energy, because of these two reasons, I am optimistic.
So before we let you go, Dr. Birol, is Russia winning this energy war?
Russia is losing the energy war and losing it badly. First of all, about 75% of Russian gas exports was going to Europe, 75%, and 55% of the Russian oil was going to Europe. And Europe was by far the largest customer of Russia, and it's finished. Europe was a very good client, get the gas, get to it, pay the money on time, doesn't create any problem, just a very easy going client, and lost the biggest market, biggest client. Now Russia is trying to find other ways, some to China, some to India, but there are huge economic, political, technological challenges to replace Europe. This is one. Second, more importantly, Russia oil and gas comes from a complicated, complex field, geologically complex fields. You need international Western technologies, as Russia was doing, in order to get this oil and gas under the ground and transport it. And as a result of sanctions now, all of these companies left Russia, and it will be very difficult for Russia in order to see that their production will grow. For these two reasons, Russia's role will be much diminished in the international energy arena in the next years to come.
Giving us more reason to look for other sources of energy,
Exactly.
particularly for clean energy.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for your insights. Dr. Fatih Birol there, Executive Director of the International Energy Agency.